We chose to focus our social action project on the HPV vaccine for a number of reasons. Firstly, HPV is an important women's issue that is relevant to the university demographic. Secondly, we found that many UVic students are not fully educated about HPV or the HPV vaccine. Thirdly, we are outraged that young women have to pay a substantial amount of money for a health service that could potentially prevent dire health consequences such as cervical cancer. How much do we really know? We decided to ask some UVic students.
Do you know what HPV stands for?
Yes. Human papilloma virus.
Yes. Do you know what it is?
I think not really, no.
Yes, it stands for human papillomavirus.
Yes. Do you know what it is?
It's a virus, and I want to say it's the fallopian tubes and uterus. I know it affects that area. Who gets HPV? Both females and males are susceptible to this virus. Most commonly, young women between the ages of 15 and 29 are at the highest risk. In North America alone, half of all sexually active women between 18 and 22 have HPV. This virus can infect anyone who has ever had a sexual encounter, even without penetration. Young women tend to get infected within their first year of sexual activity. It's been shown repeatedly that those women who lose their virginity when they are young and women who have many sexual partners are at the highest risk of contracting the virus. Most people have been exposed to HPV at least once in their lifetime.
Do you know how it's transmitted?
No, I don't think so.
The most common transmission of the human papillomavirus is not through bodily fluids, but instead through skin-to-skin contact with the penis, scrotum, vagina, vulva, or anus of an infected person. Kissing or touching a partner's genitals with the mouth can also transmit the HPV virus. Condoms do not guarantee 100% protection, as they can't cover all the skin surfaces surrounding the genitals and the anus, and therefore contraction of the HPV virus is still possible.
Do you know what the symptoms are? If there are any?
I'm sure there probably are symptoms, but I'm not sure.
Warts. I think I get warts. And then I feel ill.
I can't say. No.
Actually, most people who get HPV don't have any signs or symptoms and may unknowingly spread the disease. Chances are you will contract some form of the HPV virus in your lifetime and not have any signs or symptoms. In fact, chances are you will have no problems at all from the HPV virus. HPV infection plays a major role in the second most common cancer among women worldwide, namely cervical cancer. The HPV virus inserts its own DNA into human cells, which is likely to cause the uncontrollable multiplication of cells seen with cervical cancer. Although most women don't get cervical cancer until their late 30s, all women are encouraged to have regular Pap tests, as this allows for early detection of tumors and therefore plenty of time to treat them.
Do you know if there is a test to screen for HPV?
I'm not aware if there is or not.
Do you know if we can screen for HPV?
Yeah, okay. There is actually no screening test to detect HPV. And since most HPV infections have no symptoms, you may not be able to tell if you or your partner are infected. However, a test is in the making, which will tell if you have the highest risk strain of HPV. A common question is whether HPV can be treated. Unfortunately, the answer is no. Unlike bacterial STIs such as gonorrhea, chlamydia, or syphilis, there are no antibiotics to cure HPV. Doctors can boost the local immune system to help control outbreaks of lesions, as well as remove visible warts, but they are not able to kill the virus. Gardasil is a vaccine that helps protect against infection from HPV by boosting the immune system so that it effectively fights off 4 types of human papillomavirus, type 6, 11, 16, and 18. The vaccine only protects against 70% of the strains of HPV that cause cervical cancer.
What do UVic students know about Gardasil?
There's actually a vaccine. Do you know what the vaccine is called?
Gardasil?
Yeah. Do you know what it actually protects you from?
Contracting the virus? Or at least, if it were to get into your body, it wouldn't be able to affect you as much. Maybe if it works like other vaccines, it basically you work up, antibodies, and your body can fight it if it were to come back.
I know that it protects against certain strains of HPV, not all of them, but the ones that are the most common, and those are the ones that tend to lead to cervical cancer.
Well, I first noticed some things about it at the University Health Clinic a few years ago. They had all these posters up saying that there was this new vaccine for girls that would help prevent, that was being tested with girls that would help prevent the spread of HPV. And they were doing it directly because of the relation to cervical cancer and trying to reduce the causes of that. And I sort of wondered at the time why it wasn't available for guys, because I know that it's just as easily spread on both sides. So if they're actually serious about preventing it, about preventing cervical cancer, they probably have a better chance if they were hitting both sides. So I asked the doctor then, and they sort of explained what it was, and at the moment, and this was a few years ago, there was no testing for it. And I don't know if it was covered at the time for girls, but I do remember there was some sort of testing period, and they were really interested in getting the word out there, but I don't know how successful that was.
Our bodies usually evict the HPV virus within 2 years, but in about 10% of women, HPV smolders, often without symptoms, for years, and there's no way of knowing who those women might be. The Gardasil vaccine mimics the two most carcinogenic types of virus, protecting you decades before cancer cells might metastasize. Gardasil helps prevent these diseases, but it does not cure any present infection of HPV. The 4 strains of HPV that the vaccine protects against have been selected because they cause over 70% of cervical cancers and 90% of genital warts worldwide.
Who is eligible for Gardasil? Gardasil was initially said to be appropriate for girls and young women aged 9 through 26 years. Ideally, it should be given before being exposed to HPV type 6, 11, 16, and 18. However, it can be administered after contracting any of these strains of HPV. In British Columbia, however, it was decided that publicly funded immunization strategies would only vaccinate young girls in grades 6 and 9 for free. These strategies do not benefit our age group, which is the highest at risk.
If you are currently infected with HPV-16, the most lethal type, Gardasil won't afford you any protection against it. It will, however, provide immunity against HPV-18, the second worst type, and 2 other human papillomaviruses that cause the most genital warts. The vaccine even seems to work better for many women who have had and cleared past infections. Recent studies indicate that vaccinated women up to age 55 had significantly more protection than natural exposure provides.
Merck, the manufacturer of Gardasil, plans to ask the government to approve Gardasil for women up to age 45. And GlaxoSmithKline plans to introduce its new vaccine, Cervarix, to women up to age 55. Diane Harper, obstetrician gynecologist and leading HPV researcher, states that
this virus doesn't care how old you are. It hits you at every age.
Are young women getting vaccinated?
Do you think many of your friends are aware of the HPV vaccine?
Yeah, I think most of them are.
Do you know if many of your friends have been vaccinated?
I'm pretty sure that most of them haven't.
Does Gardasil promote promiscuity? We asked some UVic students their thoughts.
How does it make you feel when you hear that some conservatives believe that administering the HPV vaccine to young girls is going to promote promiscuity and a false sense of security?
Well, I think anyone who's educated about the vaccine knows that it can't replace safe sex practices and getting regular pap tests for girls.
I think if maybe it was administered, that maybe some people would feel like, okay, I guess, I'm protected in that sense, and maybe like everything else, but I guess it all has to do with, information that they're given and what, like, these girls know before they get it or when they get it and what happens. So I don't necessarily think that would be, a huge deterrent for administering it then, because I don't think, most girls, given that and given the information, would say, okay, like, and disregard it and then go out and do it. I don't think most girls would be like that.